welcome to the third take of the opening session at Dust or Magic. My name is Raskin. I feel like a lifetime ago I was the editor of PC Magazine at a time when I felt that computers would change the world, equalize everything, let women stay at home and raise their children, do a million things. I then went on to launch Family PC, which Warren kindly has one of the early copies there, where we kid tested and family tested everything. And went to Yahoo for a while, and now run conferences and events at the Consumer Electronics Show, including one called Kids at Play and one called the Family Tech Summit, looking at some of the issues you're talking about, which is why I love to come here, because it gives me a point of view I don't get from the Consumer Electronics Show.
Okay, my name is Jason Krogh, and I'm from Toronto. Right now, I run Sago Mini, which is a studio that creates toys as well as apps for kids aged sort of 2 to 4. But I've been in this space since graduating with a meteorology degree somehow. I used to run an agency, so we did a lot of children's digital content for all kinds of partners, as well as our own projects. So basically building anything digitally enabled that's sort of designed for children.
My name is Mitchel. I'm a professor at the MIT Media Lab, where I run a group called the Lifelong Kindergarten Group, where we develop new technologies and activities and spaces to engage people, particularly kids, in creative learning experiences, providing everyone with opportunities to explore, experiment, and express themselves in new ways. We've worked with the Lego toy company for many, many years on May, the robotic project that they've worked on. Our group focuses especially now on the Scratch programming language and online community that enables kids to create their own interactive stories, games, and animations, and then share their creations with others around the world.
I'm Chris Byrne. I'm currently content director for TTPM.com, which stands for Toys, Tots, Pets, and More. I oversee the process of reviewing more than 5,000 products a year on video. We have a lot of fun. We've got a great team, but we cover everything from children's toys through technology, and I've been kicking around the toy industry for a long time in a lot of different positions.
I'm Raul Gutierrez. I'm the founder and CEO of Tinybop. Tinybop makes, we call them digital toys. We currently have 14 apps. We always say that apps are inert until a child's imagination is infused into them. And for the last year, we've been working on a new product for schools that takes the same content for apps and packages it in a way that makes sense for schools on the web.
Okay, so who else is from Canada in the audience? Anybody? Okay. So they do some really interesting kids, very supportive of their growing the field. So I'm going to just be totally, well, first of all, has anybody looked at the top 10 toy list for the holidays? I did publish one. I have a question about this question. So I didn't put yours on here, but I looked at Amazon's and Walmart's and Toys R Us and noticed a couple of things. One is price really matters this year. Walmart, Hatchimals, Fingerlings, Little Bit Star Wars Droid Inventor, Num Nums Nail Polish Maker, Toys R Us, Little Tykes 3-in-1 Sports, Paw Patrol, Fisher Price Magic Center, Genie, Amazon breaks out its tech products from the others, and I'll give you just the top 3, where the new Thrill Ride Web Weaver, the Nintendo Switch, and Cosmo. So Chris, I thought you might, and I can give you the others. I'll put this up as a slide when I'm more prepared tomorrow. But Chris, you just did a toy list. How does that compare to what you did?
There's a lot of overlap. One of the things that we always look at is it new? Can kids play with it? Is it fun? Of course, I'm drawing a blank at some of the things that were on there, but of course, we certainly had one of the things that's on there that's one of my favorite when we're talking tech is Lego Boost, which I'm sure you know intimately. It's kind of, if you think it's sort of a certain younger version of Lego Mindstorms. And it's really creative, and what's so magical about it for the kids is when they play with it is they're not thinking about technology, they're thinking about what can I make this crazy thing that I built do. And that's so wonderful. We really like that. Of course, Hatchimals is going to have a third year, and there's a real dichotomy between what sells and what people are playing with, and the volume that's going to be pumped out there versus what's necessarily a good toy. I mean, there's a lot of mediocre toys that get a lot of that drive a lot of sales.
Yeah, and so that's going to be a really good segue because the market right now, when you look at it, is flooded with STEM, STEAM, robotics, just flooded. And so the question is, and it's really a different answer, I think, internationally than here, but in this country, is there a market and an appetite? And the way I say it as a journalist is like, when was the last time your kid ever came home and said, Mommy, please buy me that new STEM toy? Which may happen, and Mitch is going to take this one first.
Yeah. Although a lot of the things that we work on certainly help engage kids in scientific and technological activities, but we never frame our things that way, and that's what I think is special about it. So for us, we're always thinking about, we think what's most important in the world today is helping young people grow up as creative thinkers. We live in this fast-changing world where kids are going to be confronted with the never-ending stream of unknown situations and unpredictable challenges. So the ability to think and act creatively is more important than ever before. So for us, that's always the top priority. And sometimes it's using new technology. It doesn't necessarily have to use new technology. But I think I want to shift the framing. Too often people these days are framing these things around STEM. But for me, the distinguishing thing for me is whether it really supports kids in creative learning experiences, engage them as creative thinkers. Some new technology things work the way, some don't. So I'd rather use that as the framing of it than others.
One of the things we've seen a lot with STEM and STEAM and STREAM is that it's being used for marketing, and it's not necessarily really cognitive development. When a toy company came into me and said that, look, it's a truck, it teaches a child physics, because when they push it, it moves. It's like, I'm sorry. But they put STEM on the package because they think that a mom is going to buy it because it says STEM. And so what's interesting is with some moms, and I think I've said this before here, is the name STEM has become synonymous with boring. I mean, you alluded to it.
Expensive.
Right, I've just done my homework. What do you want to do? Ooh, more homework sounds fun. That's not what we're after here.
But interestingly, and Asia and India are very different now. They will pay top dollar for what is advertised as a STEM or STEAM or STREAM.
So maybe yes, but go talk to people there. There's a stronger recognition there than here about the need for creative thinking. If you look at the education system to Asia, they recognize as one of the real failings is that too often their education systems are training kids just to follow the rules, follow the instructions, and then they get into the workplace, they aren't able to develop, creative, innovative things. So I think the idea of creative thinking resonates much more in Asia than here, and I think for good reasons.
I'm not so sure. They're actually taking more double majors now. They'll go to computer school and then law school. So I think it's fair. I think they know it, but I think as every parent, I used to tell this to Seymour Papert, try being a parent and believing in your convictions that they're just going to explore their world when everybody else is getting an SAT tutor. It's difficult, and I think that the Indians, India is striving really hard now to master there's a new wealth, and they're spending money on these toys that are not selling as well here. And what I hear, and I don't know if you hear this from toy companies, they've gone back to saying we make toys, not we make STEM and STEAM products.
We use STEM in our marketing, and we find that parents really don't care, but teachers do. We market to teachers. We're just closing up a big deal in Asia for our schools program, and for them, the important thing was that our software is legitimately STEM focused, teaching basic science literacy. But the most important thing is that it's open play and it's fun, and that kids play with it a long time. So even though we talk a lot about STEM, really the sell was that as they were testing, we did a program for 6 months and they were testing in schools. And at the end of it, the kids were more excited about science. They were more excited to sort of create new things, and they were excited to learn. So that's what it's all about.
But I'd argue that that's because of the experience that they had. That they, nobody's telling them you're learning. Their kids naturally want to discover, and information is their currency. They're dying to show off what they know, what they've learned, what they can do. And so for giving a platform for really doing that is really important. And the other thing I wanted to add about this year is, if you look at the toys that were the hottest sellers this summer, there were two things: spinners, which everybody saw, and slime. And there's no technology involved in any of those, and I think that they impacted the toy industry overall, because parents buy things when kids need things or want things, and they weren't asking for things because they were spinning and sliming.
One thing I'll just add is that my concern is always when we take something like STEM and just put it inside of a box. Like, it's in here, it's in this thing that you buy or acquire or whatever. And we've had this thing with Sago Mini where parents will sort of say, well, it's nice, but is my kid learning? And I think some of that is from this idea that, like, all these products are so heavily marketed as STEM products. If the parent doesn't see this in the messaging or the sticker, they're like, well, this is not that. This is something else. And I just think that divide is not constructive. It's something that we should actually actively work against.
So do you think it's a trend that's going to go away, this word, or do you think coding is going to really become part of every kid's kindergarten and up education, which there's a whole school of people asking for?
Everyone's asking for it, and I think it will become more and more relevant, more and more important. But I think right now it's in a really messy state, and I think people are the attempts to introduce this are often superficial and a little messy. But I think that will sort itself out.
Yeah, well, and instead of just predicting it, we should try to drive it in a certain direction. Because I do think it can go in lots of different directions, whether it's STEM or with coding. Because people should, this is similar to what you were saying, lump it all together. Obviously, we do a lot of things in the coding space, and it gets lumped together in ways that I think are unproductive, the same way you're saying with STEM. Because it's very, very different if you're learning coding to gain a set of technical skills as possible pathway towards particular job opportunities, versus using it as a form of expression, a new form of literacy. We're able to express your idea, develop your voice, develop identity as someone who can create things and communicate things in the world. Those are two radically different ways of positioning things. Which one's going to win out, I think, is an open question. But rather than trying to predict it, we should try to drive the change. Because in my mind, it's so much more important to make sure that kids are able to not just develop systematic reasoning, although that's important, but also develop their voice, develop their identity. But I think it's going to take active effort in order to make sure that things move in that direction.
Yeah, and to segment it further, I think maybe personalized, for each student. The visual learning tools to teach coding are kind of amazing. If you have never, if you always had trouble with thinking and sequential, critical thinking skills in a written form, I've seen kids pick up robots, turtles, all sorts of things, and learn to make them move and think about the skills that are required without even knowing about it. So I think even more than which way they'll think about coding, it will be highly individual, I hope.
I mean, my hope is that we are in an age where a lot of technology seems like magic for kids, and virtually every job that you can think of in the future is going to have some aspect of computing, some aspect of science underlying it. And many of those jobs aren't written yet. We don't know what they are. But giving kids a basic foundation in these ideas and the idea that they have agency over technology, I think is really important. And the more that kids understand that it's not magic, they can sort of pop the hood and make something that they can imagine, the more we've given them a little more control over their future.
One thing I reflected on myself personally is my year in public school was the first year they had a computer science class. And my teacher within the first week kind of gave up. He threw up his hands. He was like, I don't know what's going on here. But as a result of that, it was a uniquely different experience than every other class I had. Every other class, there was an expert there telling me how things worked. When it came to the computer science class, we became the experts. To the point where my teacher was sending me home with new equipment, with manuals, telling me not to tell anybody, please don't get in trouble. We had a great deal of ownership over how that whole curriculum was presented. I think there was something personally really valuable in that. It was accidental. It wasn't designed that way, but it was really interesting. And I worry today that I don't know if that flip is reinforced.
Okay, let's go on to some other trends of the year. Anybody working with augmented reality? And kids, there's one person, okay, and I'm sure we'll see and hear from what you're doing. So there's, I'd love to hear what you guys think. I mean, I've watched young kids work with an augmented experience, and it's actually you need a lot of dexterity. I mean, you're sort of holding an object or holding a book, and you've got your phone, and there's a lot of parts. And yet I'm seeing more and more apps and more toys using it. What do you think?
We played a lot around with augmented reality ideas, and have yet to find an age group that we focus on, which is early elementary school kids. In the types of experiences that we're trying to build, we have yet to find a great hook in that is better than just touching the screen. I think there's tremendous opportunity there for other kinds of experiences, but the kind of experiences that we're trying to build, there's problems with interface that are really serious for 6-year-olds. And we haven't been able to crack them. Well, we'd love to, because I think there are really cool things you can do. But for us, a lot of the friction comes in the dexterity needed to manipulate things in that space.
Again, I find myself aligned with a lot of things you're saying. I think partly because in both of our projects, a lot of times the folks are giving agency to the kids. And a lot of augmented reality now is great for information things. If you want to look and see information overlaid, it's great on that. To be able to go to another country and have a street sign, and I can have the translation automatically overlaid, or to see an object and get more information about it. Those are really useful things. On the other hand, what we want to do is to be able to let kids be the creators. Then it gets to some of the issues you're raising. So it depends on what your goals are, but if the goals are kids as creators, then I think it's been difficult for people to find ways of using the technology in that way. It doesn't mean it won't happen in the future, but right now I do think whether it's going to be successful depends on what people's goals are.
Jason, you've been playing with augmented reality at all?
We've been, I think I'm on the record as being a bit of a skeptic for our age group, and a lot of it just has to do with the fundamentals of the cognitive development of this age group. 3 and 4-year-olds understand that what I'm seeing on the screen is what's actually coming in through the camera is enough sort of a hurdle, and then you layer on a touch interface on top of that, and virtually every time I've seen it happen, it breaks down without parental involvement or some kind of assistance, which then takes the whole ownership thing right out the window.
Chris, you must have a good example of somebody doing it right.
I don't. I have yet to see an augmented reality toy that is not a crashing bore. They are mostly cumbersome, not good play experiences. There was one last year which was an augmented reality drone. So you fly the drone on your, and you've got an optical thing on your tablet, and you see what's going on the tablet. Meanwhile, there's a drone flying over here in the room. And so what is that experience? There were jigsaw puzzles that you could put the camera over and see the tiger running through the veldt, whatever. We just really haven't seen it done in any way that's fun. And as you say, I mean, it's confusing for the kids. It's a buzzword because the retailers say, "Ooh, augmented reality, it's trendy, we want to get it," but we haven't seen anything that works. The one that we do like, the new one that we do like, is coming from Lenovo. It just hit the market this week. It's the Lenovo Jedi Challenges. It's awesome. And the reason it's awesome is because you are engaged in the play. And what they've done with the headset is your iPhone sits on top and it's got a mirror. So your friend standing across there can see what you're seeing in the headset. So he can actually yell at you, "Hey, they're coming from over there." And it's all about the play experience. It's not about the technology.
Yeah, and I would say their predecessor, nobody, is anybody here with Osmo, from Osmo? I think, I won't call it pure or traditional augmented reality, but with a simple mirror and the iPad, I think what they've done is unbelievably great to let kids physically interact with the real world and the computer in a seamless way. The new one, actually, you drive them until Hot Wheels, and it takes off from a physical racing curve, and then all of a sudden, you're kind of nauseous watching this iPad play. And it's what they've done, I think, is the best of breed out there right now.
Pokemon Go did okay.
Oh, I was just out here. Go to Lambertville, Ticini's right outside. I mean, I'm like on level 36. Yeah, I'm sort of addicted for so many reasons. It's my meditation. I found all this. Ask me what the 100-din clock is. Ask me who died across the street. I mean, I still think Pokemon is a great example of what augmented reality can be. And I got my exercise. Moving on to the favorite robot.
My favorite robots are the ones that my kids build. So, they're tinkers, and they use all sorts of old parts and things that actually make their own.
Including chips?
They use little bits a lot, and now they're at the point where there's no Radio Shack anymore, but we order from Amazon.
Favorite robot?
For this year, the Little Bits Droid Inventor Kit, R2D2, because it's really about creativity. It's about using technology to create, and that process of saying, well, what if? What if I do this? What if I use it as it's done? Or what if I put a milk carton on it? Or what can I make it do? And I love the whole Little Bits line, because it really is that sort of open-ended, the child's involved in it, they're not just building a model. I think that's probably my favorite one for younger age kids.
Favorite robots?
But again, I sort of agree that folks letting the kids do the building. So, and whether it's I also like Little Bits a lot, and opens up for kids to create their own things. And also, I think they frame their messaging is really emphasize the kids' creativity and inventiveness.
Yeah.
I think in a really positive way. You mentioned Boost earlier, which I thought is some of those things. But also, just there's all sorts of other ways of in a more maker spirit, where kids are using Raspberry Pis and other things that are maybe a little more advanced in some cases, but it's getting kids as the makers of things. So there's lots of ways to be doing that. I will mention one thing that we work. Usually, I'm more skeptical of a pre-made robot. One that we worked with during this past year was the Anki Cosmo.
I love that.
And they integrated our Scratch software into it. They did a really thoughtful job of how to integrate programming into it. So though it does a lot of things on its own, they're cute and clever, and it's very expressive. Then when they went around to try to get the kids to have more control over it, they did a really thoughtful job of how to integrate coding into it. So I was impressed with what they did.
Mark, do you have a Cosmo here?
There's one at MediaTek tomorrow.
Okay. It really is worth playing with, both on the programming side and on the whimsy side. So many of these robots have no personality whatsoever. They're really horribly boring, and Cosmo makes me laugh. I mean, it's just the cutest, most whimsical thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, the other thing is that the ones that do have a personality, it's that personality that you go, oh, this is what an adult thinks a child is going to enjoy. And it's like, oh, it makes fart noises, yay. And it's not, the thing about Cosmo is it really is very rich.
But also, even ones that have whimsy, sometimes even if they have a clever whimsiness, you can appreciate all the controls in the robot. You can't do very much with it. So what I appreciate with Cosmo was, although it has the whimsy, it also will let you take control as well.
Yeah.
So that combination is not
And it's scalable. You can start with a really idiot-proof.
You can make it bad. It's like teasing the cat.
Yes, it's got a little Tamagotchi to put in there as well. Yeah.
I'd say I teach a bunch of kids robotic ideas, and over a couple of years of doing it, I've gotten simpler and simpler in terms of what we do. And as long as you give the kid a challenge, like let's move, this rock from here to here, and you give them a bunch of pieces, I found that the simpler, the more you get to the base of, this is a motor, this is power, this is, how you move a leg a certain way, the more excited the kids get. more so than the sort of more fully featured robots where you're like they love programming Scratch, but there's something really powerful about the kid that's really good at origami that comes up with some clever way to get the thing to move like an inch away.
Totally agree. And also trying to, for me, like one example when you talk about simplicity that I really like is the microbit, which on the microbit, which was given to every school child in England and was just more recently launched in the United States, just for like $20 or so. And it's sort of more of a maker thing, but it's not as much for making robots, but just making things move in the world and sensing in the world. So trying to broaden the way people think about interacting with the world, so it doesn't have to be classic, mobile robot, but thinking more about controlling lights in the world, getting inputs from things. I think the microbit is a really good entry point, low-cost entry point for doing some simple things with that.
The only thing I'll add is that I'm encouraged by the variety of people who are in this space now, and I'll give a shout out. There's a Toronto company that does a thing called Little Robot Friends. It's just like 2 people who started it out, and it just seems like every time I open my Twitter feed, there's somebody else who's got some kind of little robotics kit, and I think that there's a lot of different settings and situations where you need different types of tools. And I also think it's interesting. I'm encouraged by seeing the prices come down because I know people who teach technology in schools, and it is a big issue. They would love to use some of these things, but they realistically just can't afford them. And so I think this stuff's going to get more and more accessible.
So you've all talked about building and building something that you have some agency over. What about things like Tinker or Code for America, things that are screen-based? Same, different, yeah.
We built a screen-based coding app for ourselves that sort of turns the iPhone or iPad inside out, and kids can essentially connect all the sensors in a simple way to make detectors. I think that screen-based coding can be really fun. Again, there are different kinds of kids. It's sort of in any group of kids that you're teaching this stuff to, there's always going to be somebody that's maybe more interested in physical, somebody that's more interested in code. And expose it, when you expose groups of kids to enough different things, they'll specialize, they'll sort of self-specialize. I think right now there's not enough of these things that work together. And so often when you're in Tinker World, you're in Tinker World. But I would really like, the geek part of me would like to see sort of more open standards. I think Scratch has done a good job of creating an open system that people can hook into, but I'd like to see more of that.
For me, I'd rather not see the line drawn between on the screen or off the screen, although there are differences, and you recognize that. But more importantly, letting them quote build in either case, so create, or use the word creating. I think whether it's creating with Lego bricks or drawing with Crayola crayons, or building different animated stories on the screen, all of those should be seen as types of creating. And as Raul was saying, different kids will go towards one or the other. Though ideally, kids will try to cut across and do some of both. And just one peek ahead, actually, we're introducing a next generation of Scratch next year, and a main focus of it is making it much easier to connect with both the physical world and the online world. So trying to make much more of a hub to make easy interface to let other people create their own blocks, Scratch blocks for connecting to different things. So I really think that the goal is to make it very open, to be able to let everybody use this as a standard hub for controlling things in the world or things in the...
So Mitch, do you see the arc? I mean, I think you were there when Logo was introduced as a, make the turtle go forward 4 steps and right 4 steps. Do you see the arc of all of this coming along further and further? Is the same foundation principles taken to new materials?
That's a good plug for after dinner. I'm giving a talk that Byrne asked me to call Fulfilling Packard's Dream. And we're talking about exactly that, because I do think, for me at least, it is ideas that Seymour Papert talked about many, many years ago, 50 years ago, that really haven't been fully played out yet. We see some ways in which it's being played out, but I still think it's an unfulfilled dream. So I do think there's still a lot to do, but in my mind, that still sort of sets the vision and the direction.
Okay, well, good plug for that.
I think one thing that is different about right now is that, when I was learning to code, it was really hard to move from the screen to the physical world. And now we do have so many things, and all of us are carrying supercomputers in our pockets that are full of sensors, and connecting the sensors in the phone to code that you can build on a desktop to a robot. It's getting more seamless, and that's the interesting thing, because when you're working with kids, they just want to solve problems. There's some cool thing that they want to do, and we're giving them more tools to be able to do that.
So I got a note on Facebook the other day, before Christmas. I want to buy my nieces some tech toys. What should I buy? And I'm on Facebook with a fairly bunch of techie people, and I would say 75% of those people said, don't buy them tech. Buy them a ball, buy them an outdoor toy, buy them anything else. You take that, you take fake news, you take the Russian elections, you take the fact that teachers are terrified to even tell their kids to go research a paper to some degree. And how does that play into, what can we do to sort of not have a technology backlash, I guess?
To avoid the dichotomy between the techno enthusiasts and the techno skeptics, because the more people just are rah-rah, everything about technology is great, that's going to lead to techno skeptics. And right, and the thing is, we should dichotomize the world that way. So, as I'm repeating myself now, the point should not be about whether that's technology or not. It's about whether it lets the kids design, create, experiment, explore, and they can do that with origami and modeling clay. They can also do it with scratching little bits. I mean, so those are one side, and there are other things. They're just delivering information to kids, or you're providing kids just with a way of blindly pointing and clicking. So you should focus more on whether it has technology or not is less important. Whether it engages the kids in designing, creating, experimenting, exploring should be the way that we all talk about it.
I think it's also really important to teach kids media literacy and tech literacy, so they understand that Google, Instagram, all these things that they use, they're products of people's work, and there are algorithms involved. And to teach a kid how an algorithm might affect what they're seeing, to teach that when a kid is 10, really might help them out, when they're 18 and they're deciding to move on.
Well, along those lines, I mean, that's the same as how we teach children to consume advertising. The things are being pushed at them in a certain way. But we live in a world where today's 12-year-olds have never been without smartphones. So for them, tech is not the wow. It's the experience that's the wow. I mean, I had much too much access to matches and gasoline when I was a kid. But it was all about seeing what can we do? What can we make happen? And that's what we see happening. I mean, concurrent with all the rise in tech, we've seen a boom in arts and crafts. We've seen a boom in maker stuff, in creativity. And whether it's tech-driven or not, that's such a human thing. And it's really what kids are interested in and what inspires them. And I think one of the problems that a lot of toy executives, or challenges they make, is they're traveling in airports and they see kids being entertained on the tablet and the phone, and they think that's the only way kids want to play. When we go into kids' homes, we're invited. We ask them, show us what you're playing with. They'll show us everything, from balls to their computer to their instruments. They show us the whole richness of their lives, and so it's not. I don't think we need to be afraid of tech so much. It's just knowing where it fits in the context of giving a child a really great experience.
Jason?
I guess I'll just add that I think society in general, I think, is struggling with the pace of change, which is fostered and brought on through technology. The flows of information and the changes that are just affecting adults' lives, their jobs, everything. And I think that ultimately they project that onto some of their own children's experiences. But yeah, I think ultimately we just need more and more positive examples of technology use, and we need to those kind of examples that break it down. We got involved in a Children's Discovery Center museum project that started up in Toronto, and I was introduced to the founder, and she basically didn't want to talk to me because if she found out what I did, it was just to create apps for children. And a couple people on my team were like, I don't know if you even want to pursue working with them, and I was like, no, this is exactly who I love talking to. It took me about an hour. I showed her the things that I do with my daughter with her iPad. I showed her the videos we made. I showed her all these things. And we became fast friends, and we worked together a bunch.
But teachers, it goes back to your opening story, I think, about the classroom and your programming experience. The kids come in today and they are the authorities of fake. They actually have really good sniffers about authenticity, and we'll say to the teachers, I don't know if that's right. I mean, so they've kind of grown up with media literacy in their face, I think more than we have. I mean, they're always telling my mother, what to do, and no, don't open that.
They are to a certain extent, but they are also very vulnerable to, there are a lot of big ideas that are out there that are being directed at adults, but are being consumed by kids. Kids are sophisticated technologists, but they're also 10-year-olds. I was talking with a story I always tell is a mom that was really anti-Minecraft. Her kid was obsessed with Minecraft. I said, let's go upstairs, let's see what your kid's doing. And so we go up, and her kid was playing hide-and-go-seek. They were playing in Minecraft, but they're playing hide-and-go-seek. It's exactly the same play pattern that they had in real life. And I think that's where the tension is that there's tremendous power, but there's also tremendous ability to distort what they see in the world. And when you teach kids about how algorithms affect what they perceive, it really opens up their world. And that's the kind of thing that is too often not taught to kids.
And also, I like the story about Minecraft and kids playing hide and seek. I think one reason for the success of Minecraft is that you can use it in so many different ways, and you can play hide and seek. And so also we have to help adults understand that technologies can be used in so many different ways. A lot of times they hear something just gets pigeonholed as one thing, but it can be used in many different ways, and be thinking much more about how it's being used as opposed to just some, assumption about what it is.
Yeah, well, last year when we were at the media lab with Warren, I asked the kids who were there, had they ever heard of Wikipedia? And they had not. And I said, where do you go for your information? And it was YouTube. So it's, I don't know if we realize quite how fast it's all changing. And
well, I just want to add one thing about play. I had a Tonka steam shovel when I was 5 years old that I loved. No one was going to give me a real steam shovel, no matter how much I asked. But you can give me, as a 5-year-old, a real tablet. And you can make it work. So we've got children today, and I'm not sure the culture is completely ready for it. To what Mitch was saying, or what you guys are saying is that here we've got kids who are using adult technology almost the same way as adults are, but they're not necessarily cognitively or developmentally ready for all the stuff that's coming at them.
I think the other thing that's tricky is that, going back to the original discussion about getting what toy to get to your kid, when you put technology, when I think of my own family, it can change. So I can look at what apps and what content or whatever is on my daughter's iPad, but if she's online, then that could update, that could change, she could stray off somewhere else. And there's no way that I can imagine having the time to sit down and curate, on a daily or weekly basis, or necessarily that I would want to monitor it in that way. And so I think that does drive a little bit of an urge to well, this physical thing, I know what the boundaries are on this.
that's okay. Google's doing it for you.
But I would say to that part of that is if you essentially give your kids a framework and you sort of teach them what's right and what's wrong in that world, I also played a lot with matches and explosives when I was a kid. And we would wander around the woods and do all sorts of things that we weren't supposed to do. But again, there is this sort of, we can't control everything. We can't control everywhere they go online. But what we can do is give them a set of values. My kids really want to be on Instagram. I said, you can be on Instagram if you use your own name, if I have access to your account. if and if you're private and follow your friends. And we gave them basically a few simple rules for them to follow. And it's been great. They're good citizens there.
And are you a do as I do, not as I say, or do as I say, not as I do person?
I'm on social media too, so they follow me as well.
And I do think there are choices we're going to have to make. Obviously, one direction to go is with online activity. And again, obviously with really young kids, I wouldn't do the online activity. Once kids are doing things online, interacting with others, one path to go, which many companies choose, is really restrict the expressiveness. If you only allow people to choose comments from a list of 5 comments, then you can't have any, really restrict and make it much less likely to have inappropriate things happen. But you really restrict expressiveness and development of creativity. On the other hand, you allow more creativity, then there's a greater possibility of challenges arising. And that's a choice to make. So obviously with the things we've done, we don't want to give up the creativity and expressiveness, so we try as hard as we can to make sure it's a friendly, safe environment. But there's still more risk than if it was only giving people a list of 5 things to choose from. We think that's a good trade-off, but I think that's an issue that people have to think about of how to deal with that trade-off.
And kids will get around those restrictions. I mean, in my kids' school, they had this thing where there were only certain positive words that they were supposed to use. So the kids invented, they called it the dog boy language. And they had a whole separate language with a key, with the good words keyed
That's
to.
what Facebook's new acquisition will.
Because that's what kids do, but also for the younger kids, there are companies like VTech, Krogh that are doing things like the Kitty Buzz, which is a new sort of handheld device for 3-year-olds, 3 and 4-year-olds, which is curated content. It is a closed loop. Kids can text, young kids, but they can only text through approved things with the parents. So there is a little bit of a level of control on that. So this is for younger kids than you guys are talking about. They're having the experience, so they feel big, which is important to them. But they're also in a protected environment without the parent having to spend all day curating.
The other thing I'll mention is that as humans, we always overestimate new risks we're not familiar with. And so I think there is a sense of when you look at some new technology, you automatically go to what bad things can happen. But you have to have that balance of what can happen when it's walking to school any day or interacting with people in your neighborhood. This is part of life, but those risks we grew up with and we're familiar with, and I think it's just harder when it comes to new things.
Robin?
All right, so yes.
Emmet is in the house. He has arrived. There he is. You want to start over?
Okay, I'm going to take 17. I'm going to make them play lightning round on 3 questions, just like yes or no, because they were my burning questions. I think the app stores are going under. I think they've become the worst places for discovery and buying. Jason?
Oh, way to put me on the spot.
And then hand it to Emmet to introduce himself.
How do we do it the other way around?
Hey, how you doing? Emmet O'Neill from TouchPress and Story Toys. Sorry, quick intro.
Yeah.
So ask your question again because they're going to edit. They want to edit.
Take number 753.
Thanks, Chris.
Going back to the question, I'm just going to do lightning round. Quick opinion. I think the App Store is on the way out. I think hard to discover things, can't tell the quality of things. There are going to be other ways to get these experiences delivered, and we're already seeing new media entertainment. Jason?
I think I would disagree with that. I still think the App Store plays a major role in curating and surfacing, quality content. I think that in many ways the App Store has provided a little bit of control in a sea of chaos, and I still think there's a role there. Not to exclude web-based delivery and that kind of thing, but no, I would say they're a long way from over.
Just that I'd be
I do think that what Apple have done recently with the App Store is the most interesting experiment, and they're experimenting with a multi-billion-dollar business, and I'm sure anybody who's a developer here is absolutely terrified as it transitioned from the old App Store to the new store. but if
Everybody knows what he's talking about? New App Store?
So the App Store is now editorially driven. They are treating it like a magazine. They have a staff. They have a large staff. I mean, it's 60 plus people, and they've hired in writers from traditional publishing, and they're basically trying to make the App Store a part of people's daily routine. And while it's not there yet, I think Apple are really good at getting people to change behavior, and I think that what they're doing in terms of the sort of magazine presentation and what have you, it does mean it's actually even more curated and more editorially driven than ever before. But I'm really I'm seeing some positive impact from the move, and I think that if over time they actually do get user behavior to sort of, oh, I'm going to go check out this as a part of my daily browsing, then I think it has potential.
Yeah, I think the alternative is a lot of algorithm-based discovery tools, which I think have serious shortcomings when it comes to kids' content in particular, so that's where my concern is.
I don't feel I have a lot of expertise on this, but I don't see it going away anytime soon. It'll more evolve in ways.
I think the App Store is going to stay as a platform, and especially if this new thing works, it's going to be even more interesting and engaging and change the shopping experience, which is really important. But if you're a developer, you have to get behind your stuff too. You can't just put it up there and hope people will find it. I mean, you have to probably spend as much on marketing as you spend on development, just like the movies.
Right, so it's like doing a Kickstarter on the App Store every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Emmett's analysis is correct. I think that the Apple App Store has always been, every single thing that you see on the Apple App Store is chosen by an editor. I think now it's been editorialized in a way in which if you are a company that had a certain amount of shelf space, you can't necessarily count on that shelf space anymore. And so there's more of a churn, a daily churn. And so you have to think about your apps in terms of the stories to tell about those apps in order to pitch those stories to the editors. In the first month of the App Store, it's been a pretty positive trend for us. Like with roughly the same amount of featuring, we've seen 1 month jump of like 20-25%. It's 1 month of data, so who knows over the long term. But it is a profound change. The Google Play App Store, I think, still has the same problems it's always had. For us, we're not focusing on development.
And where else do people come to you from besides the App Store?
They did come from the web. With the new App Store, we had 20% of our sales came from the web. And so that was a big worry with the new App Store because you can't, the new iTunes removes the App Store. We have not seen a decrease in those in sales, so maybe they are, going more frequently. Like again, it's too early to really know how it's going to work long term. But the 1 month impression is that it's been a positive thing.
Okay, I'm going to move on because I think we're running. Warren, are we running out of time?
Yep.
Okay. We talked about augmented reality before you.
Can I throw in
Yeah.
one interesting thing about the new App Store is that we're seeing surges of sales around the world in ways that we haven't seen before. So we still don't know why. We assume it is because Apple is editorializing in other languages in other countries. We have less insight into the global stores now because of the way it's set up. But we saw really strong sales last week in Vietnam for reasons.
There was a strong shipment of old iPhones to Vietnam last week is what I think. But anyhow, Emmet, before you got here, we talked about augmented reality and how there was a lot of hype behind it. Maybe kids didn't really get much out of the experience. So virtual reality, I'm going to posit, just to be a nuisance, that I think old people get more out of virtual reality because they're real reality, and I mean really old people. I'm seeing wonderful things happen in virtual reality with seniors and less so with kids. I think it's really confusing for them. Thoughts on virtual reality and kids?
So, I mean, you know, we've obviously been playing around with both AR and VR, and I do think there's great potential in either. But I mean, VR, I think AR presents exciting opportunities, and I think as soon as we hit a point where the user interface becomes less clunky, as soon as there's a decent wearable, as soon as, you know, there will be something that makes a difference there, and I think that will actually make have a hugely positive impact on kids' media, and actually just on how we do everything. But I kind of think that although we're actively developing in the VR space, it feels like more of a dead end. I am excited about some of the stuff that Oculus has put out recently, some of the things that they've announced, but I still think nobody wants to see children with a big piece of technology strapped to their head and being completely shut off from the world. So I think kids' reactions are actually usually pretty fantastic to it, but I think that between parents and teachers, I just don't think anybody wants to see somebody with a blank school mask over their face.
Yeah, I think I'll echo most of those comments. It's like all these things. I think a new wave comes along, and everybody's applying it to lots of different problems, and then it filters out. And there's a couple of places I'm sure where VR is going to be amazing, teaching surgical techniques or something, flight training. For the space that I tend to spend all my time thinking about, 3 and 4 year olds and open play experiences, no, it doesn't really have a home there right now. Having said that, there's always, you know, it's like all these things. My nephew came back from a trip and, you know, was able to show us views, 360-degree views from his mountain climbing experiences, including my daughter, and that was pretty magical moment there.
Although there could be problems with the current technology, and I wouldn't be pushing it with really young kids. If I had to guess, my guess is that as the technology evolves, that we'll find some really popular and successful ways that VR will enter the world of kids. I worry about it because I have trouble seeing how it's going to enter the world of kids in ways that I feel really excited about. So my guess is that there will be ways that come out as the technology evolves that will be successful with kids, not necessarily really young kids, but some older kids. I have a harder time, as I've thought about seeing how it can be used in ways that I would be excited about kids using, is less clear to me.
I think there's some gaming applications of VR that are really immersive right now. We've seen some companies come out with VR standalone items that are, you know, you strap it to your face, but they don't work. They don't work very well. I know a lot of kids who have, you know, beg to get the VR, and then it's gone back to the store because it's expensive. Right now, it's very expensive. You need a computer that can run the graphics. You need the headset. You're tethered to the computer for the most part. It's a very, very expensive play experience, and I think parents are pushing back and spending $1,500 to $2,000 for basically a video game.
Other than Merge VR and a couple like that, $29, and you basically put your phone inside a VR shield, and
they don't work that well.
They don't work that well, but you are right. The kids' experiences are pretty amazing. I mean, every age experience, from old to young, is pretty amazing. And I do think we will learn to explore. Google has a paint application VR, and you walk through what you've created in VR as you're painting it, and explore it from all sides. And I think it will get there, but I'll defer to expertise.
I think the most successful VR thing that I've seen is just, you know, cardboard and using it for news notice. You know, my kid has one. You know, New York Times posts their news notice sometimes, and we'll you know, stick it in and take a journey someplace. But I still think there's just a lot of work, and there is something very cut off about that experience that I worry about with kids and sort of trying to integrate play and traditional play patterns.
And what you're talking about is not that much different from the Viewmaster from 1939 or Stereopticon from the end of the 19th century. It's how do we have this perceived visuals in a way that is surprising to us.
Okay, this is the before dinner question. Nobody even has to answer it if you don't want to, but I think you should think about it. When I started in this industry, actually, IBM was what IBM was, and AT&T was what AT&T was. AT&T became deregulated by the government because it was stopping innovation from happening. As a big behemoth, IBM was left to continue on its way. Fast forward, oh God, I'm afraid to say, 40, 50 years. So we have a couple of giants, really big ones. We've got Google, we've got Apple, we've got Amazon, those other guys. Microsoft's reclaiming some of it. And the question really is about innovation, and do these guys, are they the ones now stifling innovation and making it harder? And you can quickly answer, you can go have a martini and forget about it. Your choice.
After that one first.
Got anything, Emmet?
No, off the top of my head.
Look at that, Robin, sorry.
Stump the crowd. So, Byrne, is that a good stopping spot? So we'll ask these questions again over and over, as we start to hear from more people. But history is a great predictor of the future. So think about it. And time for dinner, right? This daylight savings. Thank you all so much.
Being constructionists, we want to ask you if you have a question or comment, because I know we've been storing up a lot, so I'll walk around if you have something you really want to say. I know, Mark, you had your hand up. Art Schlichting, Noodleworks.
Mitch, I'm going to follow up on your comment about agency, because I think that's really key. It's really important. And if, we know that Siri and a lot of the others are going to become something that becomes household, and our kids are going to be used to talking to them. And how would you support Siri's personality to add agency?
How to support, say it again,
How can Siri support agency in the kids and the way it interacts with them? Or Alexis or anything?
Although, taking a step back, I definitely think there are ways of using voice. So I wouldn't necessarily start with what Siri or Alexa are doing now, but trying to think about how we can use voice in innovative ways, I think is a really good thing. And obviously, providing ways for kids to be able to use voice as part of their constructive activities, having kids make things where they're creating things that recognize voice. So they create their own, conversational creations. When we talk about kids making simple robots, in the future, kids will make their own simple robots that are conversant simple robots. So the same way that we can use ways of taking voice technology, both in synthesis and recognition, and put it in the hands of kids so they can use it as a new material to create with. That's what I would try to do.
And you explain the algorithm. Where are these voices coming from?
Well, I think it's important for kids to understand, how one thing connects to the other. And, like I would love it if we had a simple way to train these different voice robots with a simple programming. Even if it's just building your playlist, your music playlist, essentially training them. And again, anytime I feel like anytime you give kids sort of a peek behind the technology, it's like when kids watch film and you teach them what a cut is, and they understand that film is this thing that's created and that they're not watching a continuous piece of action. They see behind the veil, and then suddenly, it gives them a lot of power.
And that's exactly what we're trying to do. So again, when I mentioned this next generation of Scratch, is trying to be more hub connected both to the physical world, but also online services. So we're working with Google so that you could have a Scratch block for kids that then accesses Google, speech recognition services, so the kids can get a sense. But then the question for us is, what are the right blocks to give to kids? Because obviously there's huge complexity in those algorithms. So what we're trying to do is, how can we what is the right building block to give kids to give them some insight into it, because I totally agree with you. But it's still a hard question of where to give them the insight in, and that's what we're trying to work on.
And for both of you, the ages thing is like, so what you're saying is understanding what's behind the magic is more magical than the magic.
Well, I think it allows you to understand that the world is not magic. It's a series of choices that other people make.
I'm in the wrong place.
And because of that, it allows you to imagine creating something.
And then the people design these things. That was the thing. I mean, I grew up, I did not have any engineers in the world around me. I didn't grow up even thinking about how things were made. And I think it's important for people, for kids to grow up realizing that someone made that, and someone made a design decision around that. So by opening it up, and just having kids grow up thinking about things that way, to me is really important.
But Mark, you turned out okay. We have a question back here.
So before you were talking about the App Store and just kind of how it's different layout in the format, I'm thinking from a teacher perspective or how they're navigating, because I noticed that it's very different. So I kind of help support teachers, and I'm working on my doctoral work, and I'm going to do content analysis. What are your recommendations for navigating the way the App Store is designed now, considering that there are so many differences?
I do think it's a work in progress, and I don't, at the moment, I don't think it's about advising teachers particularly on how best to access it. I think it's a case of we as developers need to work with Apple to make sure that they are, as a group, catered to, and that there are appropriate resources and appropriate, I guess, editorialized content, articles, all of those sort of things, for specifically focused on an educator audience. So I think it's not just about education for the teachers. I think it's about how the store evolves and it having responsibility to cater to them.
Yeah, I think you're going to see personalization built into the store even more over the next couple of years with AI and
You should, but actually the sort of editorial move it's almost a little bit a step away from, like, it's less algorithm driven, it's less personalization driven. So I think they will build a layer of intelligence on top of the content that they're making at the moment, but they ain't there yet, you know?
I mean, don't you think it should say, what do you want, tell me about yourself. Who are you? What age is your kid? What do they want to know? Where do you live? And guide you through personalization.
Right now we're in this in-between phase in the App Store, and actually all the resources that were there for teachers before are still there. They're just kind of hidden. So whatever was there before still exists. I will say it's in many cases not very good. Like if you're looking to teach a third grade unit on biology, a lot of times there are apps that are legitimately teaching biology, but then they're thrown in with something that is not there. I think right now for teachers, a lot of the best content is on the web, and there are websites like Concepts Media and so on that filter and organize things better for teachers.
This is a plug. There's also a website called Free Technology for Teachers, which is run by my nephew. So it's really awesome.
Well,
Questions?
we have a million questions. That's the idea, because this is the start of a conversation. And so let's thank this wonderful panel.